Beat me in chess and I'll marry you, smirked the CEO. But the single dad won in 3 moves. Before this story begins, tell me in the comments, have you ever been completely underestimated because of how you look? Leonardo King, 39, was more than a billionaire CEO. He was a legend. Ruthless in business, undefeated in negotiations, and most famously, undefeated in chess. He called it the game that reveals a man's true intelligence. To his employees, beating him at chess was impossible. To his rivals, it was suicide. And to women at society galas, his arrogance was irresistible. That night, at a charity fundraiser, the CEO leaned back in his chair, sipping wine as he toyed with yet another opponent. The poor banker across from him was sweating bullets, already losing his queen. Laughter filled the hall as Leonardo smirked. "Another victim," someone whispered. But then, a quiet voice rose above the chatter. "I'll play you." Heads turned. It wasn't a banker, investor, or socialite. It was Ethan Wells, a modest single dad in a simple shirt and worn shoes, there only because he'd won free tickets from a raffle. He didn't look like he belonged in the glittering ballroom. Leonardo's brow arched. "You?" "Yes, me." Ethan's voice was calm. His little daughter tugged at his sleeve, whispering, "Daddy, maybe we should go home." But he smiled at her. "Trust me, sweetheart." Leonardo chuckled darkly. "Fine, but let's make it interesting. If you beat me, I'll give you whatever you ask." He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "But if I win, you walk out of here and never dare to humiliate yourself again." Gasps echoed across the room. The CEO was setting him up to fail. Ethan simply said, "Deal." Leonardo leaned back, smirking. "One more twist. Beat me, and I'll marry you. That's how confident I am you'll never win." The crowd erupted with laughter. To them, it was a joke. To Ethan, it was a test. He sat down. His daughter squeezed his hand, whispering, "Daddy, you can do this." And then the game began. The pieces clicked softly on the board. Leonardo moved his pawn with effortless confidence. He always opened the same way. Classic, aggressive, flawless. Ethan studied the board in silence. His hands looked calloused, his shirt cheap, his hair slightly messy. But his eyes were sharp, calculating. Move after move, Leonardo smirked. "You're not bad for someone who probably learned chess at a park bench." Ethan smiled faintly. "I did. From my father." The game went on. The CEO's friends sipped champagne, mocking Ethan under their breath. His daughter, however, watched with unblinking eyes. "Go, Daddy. Don't give up." Then it happened. Ethan slid his knight across the board. A subtle move, too subtle for most to notice. Leonardo barely paid attention. Predictable. He pushed his bishop forward. But then Ethan moved again. Another knight. The CEO paused. His smirk faltered for just a second. Interesting. The room grew quiet. People leaned in, sensing something was different. Leonardo tried to brush it off, moving his queen. "Check." Ethan looked up, calm as ever. "Are you sure?" With 3 swift moves, he flipped the board's balance. The room gasped. Leonardo froze. His king, trapped. Checkmate. The CEO's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. Silence fell. Gasps, murmurs. A billionaire, undefeated, had just lost. And not to a rival CEO or grandmaster, to a single dad with nothing but his daughter by his side. What would you have done in this exact situation? Take the CEO's offer seriously, or walk away before the game even started? Comment your answer before we reveal what happened next. The room erupted in chaos. "He cheated!" someone shouted. "Impossible!" Leonardo's jaw clenched, his pride shattered. He had made a promise in front of witnesses. "Beat me, and I'll marry you." His cold eyes locked on Ethan. "What do you want?" Ethan glanced at his daughter, who was clutching her teddy bear. He wasn't there for money. He wasn't there for glory. But the challenge had changed everything. Before he could answer, Leonardo stood,
his voice venomous. "Do you even understand what you've done? You've humiliated me in front of the world. No man does that and walks away untouched." Whispers filled the room. Some feared for Ethan. Others pitied them. Ethan simply replied, "A deal is a deal." Leonardo's smirk returned, darker this time. "Fine, you won. But know this, nothing in my world comes without a price. You'll wish you never sat at this table." The crowd roared. The charity gala was no longer about donations. It had become a battlefield of pride and vengeance. Leonardo's assistant leaned toward him. "Sir, shall we handle him?" The CEO's eyes never left Ethan. "No, not yet. Let's see what the single dad does when the weight of his victory crashes down on him." Ethan took his daughter's hand, preparing to leave. But as he turned, Leonardo called out, his voice slicing through the room. "You think you won in 3 moves, but the real game starts now."
Late into the night, the glow of the screen lit Ethan's determined face. With every keystroke, firewalls cracked, files unlocked, and slowly, Leonardo King's empire began to unfold before him. But then Ethan froze. In one folder, buried deep, he found something he didn't expect. Not numbers, not bribes, not even political favors. It was photos, dozens of them, taken of Lily. The CEO hadn't just declared war, he'd made it personal. Ethan's hands trembled as he stared at the photos. Lily at school, Lily at the park, Lily holding his hand at the grocery store. Every move they made, watched, recorded, stored. His first instinct was to storm into Leonardo's mansion and demand answers, but that would only prove he was scared. No, he needed to be smarter. If Leonardo wanted to play God, Ethan would make him bleed from the shadows. He began digging deeper, searching for patterns in the files. And then he found it. Coded payments funneled through fake charities. Millions moved every month to offshore accounts. Leonardo wasn't just a ruthless CEO. He was laundering money. Ethan leaned back, his mind racing. This was it, his first weapon. But he couldn't use it yet. If he exposed Leonardo now, the man would retaliate instantly. No, he needed to wait, build the case, strike when Leonardo least expected. At breakfast the next morning, Lily asked innocently, "Daddy, why are you so tired? Did you stay up playing chess again?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Something like that, sweetheart." But before he could say more, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Checkmate comes faster than you think. Your daughter has such beautiful hair. Be careful. It would be a shame if something happened to it." The line went dead. Ethan's blood turned to ice. He looked at Lily, happily munching on her cereal. And in that moment, Ethan made a vow. Leonardo wanted to play dirty? Then Ethan would become the ghost in his empire. The move Leonardo never saw coming. The next step was dangerous. Ethan couldn't just dig. He needed someone on the inside. He returned to the hotel where Leonardo's assistant had been the night before. Instead of confronting him directly, he waited. Hours passed. Finally, at midnight, the man stumbled out, loosened tie, checking over his shoulder. Ethan followed. Not too close, not too far. A shadow in the city lights. The assistant stopped at a cafe, pulled out his phone, and began speaking in hushed tones. Ethan positioned himself nearby, recording with a hidden app. What he heard made his stomach twist. "Yeah, the files are ready. Leonardo doesn't trust anyone. He keeps the real documents in the East Wing safe. Yes, the mansion. Only his fingerprint opens it. And if he finds out I'm talking..." The assistant lowered his voice, panic in his tone. Ethan's mind raced. A safe. Fingerprint access. That was where Leonardo's true secrets were hidden. But then the assistant's voice cracked. "He's watching me too. If I disappear, they'll know." Ethan exhaled slowly. This man wasn't just a pawn.
He was another prisoner in Leonardo's game. He had two choices: use the assistant and risk getting him killed, or protect him and risk losing his only lead. As Ethan debated, headlights cut across the street. A black SUV screeched to a stop. Men in suits stepped out, moving fast toward the assistant. Ethan clenched his jaw. He had seconds to act. If he stepped in, he would expose himself. If he didn't, his only chance at breaking Leonardo from the inside would vanish forever. He moved, but not toward the assistant. Instead, Ethan slipped into the shadows, pulling out his phone. His fingers flew across the screen. Within minutes, Leonardo's assistant was gone, dragged into the SUV, but Ethan wasn't empty-handed. He'd intercepted the assistant's phone signal, every text, every call, every secret. The assistant was gone, but Ethan had just made his first sacrifice. And with it, he held the key to Leonardo's empire. The mansion loomed like a fortress, its tall iron gates glowing under pale floodlights. Ethan crouched in the shadows across the street, his heart steady, his mind sharper than ever. He'd studied every blueprint he could dig up, every guard rotation, every blind spot in the cameras. Still, this wasn't chess on a board. This was chess on a battlefield, where one wrong move could cost Lily her father. At midnight, the gates shifted open to let out a delivery truck. Ethan made his move. Slipping through the trees, he scaled the outer wall and dropped silently into the garden. The air smelled of roses, but danger lurked in every corner. Guards patrolled in twos. Ethan timed his steps, moving with their shadows, every muscle tight with focus. At the east wing he found it, the private study Leonardo kept sealed from everyone. Inside those walls lay the safe, the real secrets. Ethan reached for the lock. His gloves tapped on the keypad he memorized from stolen files. One wrong press, and alarms would scream through the night. "Daddy would be so disappointed if you got caught," a mocking voice whispered in his head. Leonardo's. Ethan silenced the thought and pressed the final number. The door clicked open. The study was vast, lined with bookshelves and marble floors. In the corner stood the safe, sleek, black, humming with fingerprint technology. This was it, the king's heart. But as Ethan stepped closer, he noticed something strange. A single chessboard sat on the desk, a game frozen mid-match. The Black King stood exposed, one move away from checkmate. Ethan froze. Leonardo had left the board that way on purpose, as if he knew someone would come. Ethan steadied his breath, ignoring the eerie symbolism. He knelt before the safe, pulling out a small scanner. His plan was simple, but risky. Override the system with Leonardo's fingerprint from a stolen image, then crack the secondary code. His laptop hummed quietly as he patched in. Seconds stretched like hours. Finally, beep. The scanner blinked green. The safe hissed open. Inside were stacks of documents, flash drives, hard drives, decades of corruption frozen in steel. Ethan's eyes darted across files labeled with dates, initials, offshore companies. It was enough to bury Leonardo forever. But one folder stopped him cold. Cole, Ethan. His name. With trembling fingers, he opened it. Photos spilled out, every detail of his life cataloged. His job, his home, Lily's birth certificate, even Maria's death certificate annotated with a chilling note. Unconfirmed, accident, or leverage. Ethan's pulse pounded. Leonardo hadn't just been watching. He'd been orchestrating. Then Ethan saw the last photo. It wasn't from the past. It was from today. Lily, sitting at their breakfast table, smiling at the camera. Ethan's stomach dropped. The mansion wasn't the only place being watched. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to take the files and vanish, but something told him this went deeper. If Leonardo already knew everything, then running would only delay the inevitable. He reached for a flash drive labeled Operation Nightfall. Plugging it into his laptop, the screen filled with encrypted code. He cracked one layer, then another, until a name appeared. Lily Cole. Ethan's breath caught. The file wasn't just about him, it was about her. And then the study door slammed shut. Ethan whirled around. Leonardo stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards, a glass of wine in his hand. His smirk cut like a blade. "Well played, Mr. Cole. I must admit, I underestimated you. Most pawns never even reached the other side of the board." Ethan's fists clenched, but he forced his voice steady. "Stay away from my daughter." Leonardo chuckled. "Oh, Ethan, don't you see? I don't want your daughter to suffer. I want her to inherit." He raised his glass, eyes gleaming. "She's the queen in this game, and every queen eventually belongs to the king." The guard stepped forward. Ethan was cornered. But Ethan wasn't just any pawn. His next move would determine everything